attended the ceremony for the restitution of the historic Chola era copper plates in The Hague during his visit to the Netherlands. The return of the culturally significant artifacts marks a major milestone in India's efforts to bring back its heritage treasures from abroad after years of diplomatic engagement and coordination. The restitution is being seen as an important step in strengthening cultural cooperation between India and the Netherlands during the Prime Minister's ongoing visit. Visuals show that the plates set on a table in front of the Prime Minister. Ajay Jandyal, my colleague, is with us on the broadcast to talk more about this. Ajay, this indeed is, a very landmark event, considering the fact that this is part of India's cultural heritage and now is going to return to India. Is kudos to the government.
Certainly, you rightly said, because the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who attended the ceremony for the institution of the historic Chola era copper plates in the Hague during his visit to the Netherlands. That is something which basically was not happening for a long. But when he visited there and witnessed it, definitely it's a cultural heritage, and definitely it's a very important moment for the Prime Minister as well as the people of the country.
Ajay, thank you for that. All right, moving on. Prime Minister Modi has arrived in the Netherlands on the second leg of his five-nation tour and received a warm welcome in The Hague. Prime Minister Modi was greeted by the Indian diaspora with great enthusiasm and addressed the large gathering, praising their contribution to Dutch society and economy while highlighting the unbroken bond with India. He also held important bilateral meetings, including with King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima. A major highlight of the visit is the Netherlands' decision to return the historic Chola copper plates to India, ancient inscriptions from the 9th to the 13th century that document the Chola era land grants, maritime trade links and cultural exchanges. The visit further strengthens the long-standing ties between two nations in trade, technology and cultural heritage. Well, we'll talk about this and a lot more. Mr. Sumit Peer, political commentator, is with us on the broadcast. Major General G.G. Dwivedi, defense and geopolitical expert, is with us on the program as well. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, joins us on the program. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Adit Kothari, foreign affairs expert, with us on the program as well. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll begin with you, ma'am. Well, this is indeed a great achievement, isn't it? This is something which has been with some of the colonial powers for a very, very long time. Now it's going to make its way back to India. But the important aspect or the tangent here is, ma'am, that such exchanges or rather such returns not only facilitate, a feeling or an intent of bilateral bonhomie, they also contribute towards, or rather they contribute a lot towards the diplomacy that exists between these two nations.
Absolutely, Vineet. I was India's ambassador to the Netherlands, and I recall that before I came to Netherlands, when I was ambassador of PR to UNESCO in Paris, we tried very hard to get these artifacts back from different European countries, and particularly from the Brits. And the Dutch were always very favorably disposed towards return of cultural property to their place of origin. In complete contrast to the Brits, who would keep telling me that it's much safer in the British Museum because it's not safe in India. Our own heritage is not safe in India. This return of these Chola era plates, the discussions were going on since my time, and it marks a huge success. These are priceless, they are beautiful, they deserve to be put in our National Museum and taken around India, because it shows what kind of art, heritage, culture and civilization we had in our country at 8th to 9th century, I think, since the 13th century. It is a moment of rejoicing, and it also demonstrates how comfortable the Dutch are with us, that the first step they did when PM reached was to put this on a table and make it public. This will force other countries, especially the UK, which is sitting on all our loot. Half the British Museum will get empty if they start returning the loot back to India, for instance. But it will put pressure on those countries who argue that colonial era looted heritage is safer with the colonialists than with the country of origin, it will put pressure, and therefore it's a very, very big victory for us. Apart from the MOU which has been signed with the ASML, which is an amazing Dutch company, the best in the world. Dutch are very low key beneath. I don't want to make comparisons with those who are not low key, but this is a company. This is a company which makes the most amazing litho machines, very heavy, which will be transported to India, will be put in Dalera, which is the Tata complex, and which will produce these amazing small, fast microchips, which we need to catch up so that nobody can ever say that we are behind in semiconductors. I think these two put together itself makes the visit worth it, apart from the amazing diaspora we have beneath. And I would like to add that the Suriname Indian diaspora, which actually should have its loyalty to Suriname and not India, consider India as their real country, which adds to the strength of the diaspora. And when I was there, the Suriname Indian diaspora used to always say, which was embarrassing, they would say it publicly, that the Indian ambassador is their ambassador, not the Suriname ambassador, because they have huge attachment, because they were sent as indentured labor. And from there, as indentured labor, they were then taken to Netherlands. They settled down there, but they are completely Indian in their habits, in their affection, in their Bhojpuri songs, in everything. So I'm sure they would have also given a grand welcome to Prime Minister Modi. Vinny.
You're quite right about that, ma'am. Sumit Peer, coming to you. Obviously, apart from this goodwill gesture of returning our artifacts, which duly belong to us, there is also a massive amount of trade and benefit that both the countries can derive from each other. And taking a leaf out of what Master Mukherjee also said, that the Dutch are low key. They never shove things in your face. They don't brag, but they believe in quality. They believe in making things happen. How can India benefit, from such a culture?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. And you always put a very good question, which has a lot of dimensions. So difficult to answer everything in one go, but I'll try my best as always. Vinny, I agree with ma'am when she says the Dutch are very low key people. I have been going there. There was a time I was going almost every second month to Amsterdam for work, but nowadays I don't go any longer. Now, having gone there and having worked with them, I can vouch for that part of it. It's very easy to work and handle and deal with them, relations and these matter. But when you look at the Prime Minister Modi, he's a man of vision, he's a man of impeccable honor, and he's a person who thinks much beyond than what you and me can think. What are we going to do there? Look, there's a vacuum in Europe. Europe cannot go to America. They have problems with NATO, and there's a lot of tussle going on. Europe cannot go with China. कहते हैं ना वो दूध से जला बच्चा छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता. That is their position with China, so they can't go there. The only viable and the sensible and the possible option which is left for them is India. India understands there's a vacuum there. They know the only source or the only reliable supply chain and whatever you want to call it is India. And India is a country which is driven by democracy principles, and we are driven by dharma. And that is what is very, very important for India. We are not like Americans, which are highly opportunists. We are not like Chinese who will even swallow you when the time comes. So that is the overall ethos which brings. And then you have a great brand ambassador like Modi ji, who has walked the talk, who has always proved that friendship value and things is what you can bank on India on. Look, last year, for example, in UAE, 4 hours, 50,000, $5 billion of investment, then 4 MOUs and 30 million barrels of oil MOU signed. 4 hours, 4 घंटे में. Now, when you go there, he got a resounding response. Hague looked like there was a Diwali there. The diaspora was emotionally charged, and it was mind-boggling. Usually for European leaders, for an Indian leader to go and get a bigger welcome than what they would get in their country, something for them very difficult to fathom the thought and live with. But it happens with Modi all the time. I mean, Trump acknowledged that for a change, because Trump doesn't acknowledge a lot of things. He acknowledged that. Now, when you talk of, if you want to break in bits and bytes, what are the things we are looking at there? We need the 5th biggest semiconductor ecosystem in the world is in Netherlands. And 3 years back, there was a company which China tried to acquire. And remember then Boris Johnson was the prime minister 3 or 4 years back. he sent his NSA and used a very strong act of Europe to stop that acquisition from going into China. So semiconductor ecosystem is number one what we have on the table. We want that. We want cooperation there. So there's no doubt in that. Number two, if you look at Rotterdam, one of the busiest ports in the world, port handling, cargo handling, ship management, everything, they are number one in the Europe. They and the Greeks, they compete with each other. In fact, somewhere they are ahead, somewhere Greeks are ahead. So when we have these transshipment hubs coming near Kerala and we're trying to build a couple of other ports, we'll need those expertise, we'll need those types because we don't want to be dependent on Sri Lanka, Colombo and Hong Kong. In fact, we are going to be a new Sri Lanka, Colombo and Hong Kong put together. That is what the plan is. So Modi ji is working ahead on the plan. Then they're very good at this water management. Amsterdam is below the water level. They're very good at water management. They're very good at this, clean water, drinking water, those treatment plants and all those things. And very important on the solar energy. We need a lot of solar energy. There's a lot of solar energy which can be trapped. And Amsterdam is known for the windmills and all. They're very symbolic in nature and people go and get pictures clicked. So that these are the 3-4 things what we have in the agenda. And let me tell you another aspect, sir. They are a NATO member and our neighbor Pakistan, Jihadi Pakistan, has been trying to tom-tom itself. Oh, I'm good friends with Turkey and he's a NATO member. And that gives me some kind of goddamn, insulation. Now, if you look at Prime Minister Modi, all the 4 countries he's meeting in Europe, they're all NATO members. So what are we doing also? We are increasing trade with Europe. We are giving them alternates. We are making supply chains resilient. And we are also getting friendly and increasing relations with the NATO members. And over and above that, we have a European trade agreement, which is going to be signed anytime soon because the paperwork is happening. That will open more and more doors of trade. So when the European trade agreement comes, when those trillions of dollars people ask, billions of dollars, where are they going to come from? That is where they are going to come from. So the groundwork is done geopolitically, politically, and economically, and strategically. You are trying to map every possible thing, and you are also trying to show them what is the influence we have. There was a time Chinese premiers used to travel the world like that, and that point of time our UPA Sarkar here did not bother anything. They were busy with letting Mama Kautrochi go, defreezing his accounts in London and all, because Mamaji was more important those days. Now here is a prime minister who is your salesman, literally you're doing a salesman job. He's going from country to country, he's trying to secure you, he's trying to get the best deals for you, and he's doing it in the shortest possible time, in the shortest possible tenure, when the world is looking at an economic fiasco. Still we need, after having our outlook degraded from 7.1, we'll still grow at 6.4%, which will be the largest growing economy, and which will be the highest growing economy in the world. And now this vision and this constant, inputs on that vision is what makes Modi different from anybody else. And that is why India has progressed leaps and bounds under this man. Why nobody else could do this? Look at the vision, look at the mission. He told you to cut on your expenses. What is he going to save? The money you're going to save not importing gold and going to London and America for holidays, is that money is going to go and get you 30 million barrels of oil. What will that do? That will get you another 30 days of resilience. So your strategic reserves from 60 days will go to 90 days. So everything has a vision. This man has an impeccable vision, and he takes the job of literally a salesman and goes for you and me and goes for the country and makes sure India wins all the time. That is what Modi is doing there. A lot of people will have a lot of things to question. They will have a lot of drama to do in the parliament, but the fact remains, this man is ahead of the time. And we need this always, he's always proven right.
You're absolutely right. And General Dwivedi, coming to you, sir. Well, the Prime Minister also spoke about responsibility of the European Union and all the nations that are a part of the European Union in terms of the crisis which has, incapacitated economies throughout the world. And he's obviously looking for friends, but at the same time, India's priority has always been to keep everyone together. The concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam is something that the Prime Minister carries everywhere, and this trip was no exception, sir.
Well, Vineet, I'll just focus more on the geostrategy and geopolitics. Trump had just visited China, and it appears that the world is heading for a bipolar world. But this is not the system which suits India, because India is a middle power, and therefore I think I see the visit more to galvanize the European middle powers. And when you look at the North Europe, what I have seen of North Europe, there are 2-3 things which stand out very clearly. Firstly is geostrategic location is very, very crucial. The second thing is that North Europe is generally low-key. Not only Norway, but the other North European countries are low-key. and the potential has not been fully exploited. Each of these five countries are very high tech in their technology, and this is where today we are talking about the world of technology, and therefore we need to harness what are good technology, because even today when you are talking about China and Europe and America, it's all the technology battle. So therefore, I think Prime Minister has very rightly identified these countries. Firstly, we are talking about the ASML. Well, this is a very unique company because it manufactures the microchip, which is something like 1 billionth of meter or nanometer, and that's the kind of precision this ASML has, and that's what is going to be the center of gravity of the visit, because we have signed the MOU and India is in very dire need of the microchips. The second very important point is the geographic location, because North Europe is today is a reckoning, and especially when President Trump was trying to, make overtures or moves to grab Iceland and others. Now, as the previous speakers have said, that today they are looking at the wider options. They are looking at options beyond Europe, beyond NATO, and that's where the India steps in. And the third point, Vineet, is today the world, the whole geopolitical canvas has opened out. The new realignment are coming. We are looking at the new diplomatic avenues. We are looking at the new geostrategic space. And this is where, once again, the North Europe comes into play. And second, fourthly, what you rightly asked me the question, I'll focus on that. That today it's all give and take, because the world is really very, very transactional. And we as Indians, or we as our leadership, we go beyond that. We go more on our commitment, more on long-term relationship, and this is where I think we can offer to the North Europe. And my final point is that India as a not only emerging power, but we are a very well established middle power. We need to have greater linkages, greater, I would say, partnerships with the middle powers, because the way the world is shaping, I am afraid that America and China and Russia possibly, the ideology or bipolarity is shaping, and this is where India can actually play a very major role, not only in North Europe, but in other Middle East countries and also the countries of Latin America. Over to you, Vinny.
You're quite right. Adit, coming to you, now the important consideration that comes to everyone's mind when artifacts are returned from here and there is when is the United Kingdom going to return the Kohinoor diamond?
Like Ambassador Mukherjee pointed out, if the British Museum starts to give back all of the loot that they engineered from India, the British Museum is going to be half empty. I would like to correct her. It's going to be completely empty. There are going to be absolutely no visitors who are going to be interested to visit the British Museum. As a consequence, I don't think, much of the loot from the colonial era is going to be coming back to India, nor is the Kohinoor ever going to come back to India. You've seen the kind of diplomatic playbook that the United Kingdom has played. Their reason for not returning Kohinoor to India is because Pakistan is also demanding for it, considering that it was taken from the Punjab Empire, the seat of which was Lahore, which today is in Pakistan. Those kind of excuses, even when David Cameron came to India, that was precisely the excuse that he actually gave to the Indian media at that point. So we can pretty much forget about it. But, just pivoting back to our conversation about this particular trip of the Prime Minister, Vineet, I think it's important that we need to understand how important and significant the 5-country visit that the Prime Minister has embarked on is for our national security. I mean, when you look at Lal Bahadur Shastri, he rose the slogan of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Prime Minister Modi is actually doing it in practice, because this 5-nation trip is actually protecting the farmers more than anybody can actually think about. The Strait of Hormuz coming into a blockade, blocks 20% of the global LNG. natural gas is the core ingredient that we need for urea protection, which goes into as the input element for our agricultural produce. Now, when Prime Minister went to UAE, he's ensured that our LNG, our LPG securities have some sort of a sustainability from that perspective. So we're protected, we're insulated to a great degree. His trip to Netherlands basically gives us tech plus water. So technology from renewable, like Ambassador Mukherjee pointed out, whether it's to do with water, whether it's to do with semiconductors, and also to do with solar energy. So those are the kind of tech transfers which we're going to get from Netherlands. Now, when we go to Norway, Norway is the real deal because that's where we're going to get green ammonia from, which is going to diversify our fertilizer security to a great extent. There is this company called Yara International in Norway, which is one of the largest suppliers of green ammonia globally. And a deal with them, would help Indian farmers to a great extent, and Indian consumers to a great extent, which will hold our food security completely insulated and protected. So all in all, this five-nation trip helps India project itself, and also in this testing times where everybody is trying to find out their choke points and ensure that they can leverage it. India is basically trying to safeguard its interests and ensure that its 1.4 billion people are well protected and well insulated. Beneath.
Ambassador Mukherjee, India is never going to get the Kohinoor back because the British have found another reason to divide and rule, or divide and fool. I guess that's what has worked in the Kohinoor's case. But the fact of the matter is that Netherlands, regardless of whatever the relationship might be between these two nations, has understood the importance of these reparations, and the fact that it also may be embarrassed about its colonial past.
It is embarrassed. The Dutch, who used to talk about 400 years of the Dutch footprint, until I told them privately that the 400 years included efforts to colonize us, so to go slow on 400 years. So then they used to talk about old footprints and new footprints, which is a good diplomatic solution. The point is that the Dutch, unlike the Brits, understand that the importance of giving back looted colonial property to the country of origin also establishes a dynamic relationship between the two countries. Like, for instance, these Chola era copper plates, as I said earlier, Vinny, these are priceless. This is going to be such a huge gesture made by the Dutch. And as far as the Kohinoor is concerned, according to international law, it was looted from India when India was not partitioned. Therefore, according to international law, it belongs to us. But it was not just the only thing. The British Museum is full of, let's say, the Kalgi, the huge amounts of property. When I was Joint Secretary Europe West, any information would come and we would call in the British High Commissioner. Jaswant Singh Ji was my external affairs minister. I told him, sir, please don't inform them, because the very next day it would disappear from that museum. And a lot of inquiries established that it would be put in the basement. So a huge amount of our heritage, which they looted, is not on display in the British Museum audit. It is in the basement of these museums because it's too embarrassing for them to display. So under
Fair
those
enough, ma'am.
circumstances, this gesture will really help to build goodwill for Netherlands,
All right.
quite apart from the ASML, etc. So I would just like to underline the importance of this gesture.
Important point that you've made. We've run out of time, but I appreciate everybody who joined in.